A British commentator who is critical of Israel has been detained by US immigration after far-right figures campaigned to have him deported. Sami Hamdi, who is the founder of a political risk consultancy called the International Interest, was in the middle of a speaking tour when ICE agents took him into custody. Hamdi is a vocal opponent of Israel's genocide and has expressed skepticism over Trump's ceasefire deal for Gaza. And this is what he told Sky News shortly after that deal was announced.
I think that it's now about how does Israel ensure either a situation where it can return to the war and continue what it's trying to achieve, the full annexation of Gaza and possible annexation of the West Bank by pushing the Palestinians out into Egypt. How does it do that without offending Donald Trump, who's absolutely insistent on this ceasefire deal?
Now, it turns out Sami Hamdi was right to be skeptical about the ceasefire. Israel has repeatedly breached the ceasefire since he spoke then, killing over 100 Palestinians and injuring hundreds of others. Just today, a reported Israeli drone attack killed 2 people and critically injured another in Gaza's Khan Yunis. This was the aftermath. The decision to detain Hamdi came after a platform called the Rare Foundation posted an article accusing him of praising terrorism and calling for his deportation. The Rare Foundation has been described as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Centre. This is how the outlet announced the news of Hamdi's arrest.
Sami Hamdi, the foreign jihadi agitator our investigations exposed, has been taken into custody and is being removed from the United States. We are proud to announce that this is one less hostile actor operating on U.S. soil.
Now, am I getting paranoid, or was that also AI? Anyway, the platform's founder, Amy Meck, I suppose it was presumably that woman who looked a little bit like a sort of AI-generated person, appeared to suggest on X that the commentator's arrest was the result of a tag team effort with Laura Loomer, another far-right activist who reportedly has a direct line to Trump. Loomer has made numerous posts recently describing Hamdi as a jihadi and a supporter of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. She also posted this. So you can see here, Amazon is now selling Islamic foot washing stations. I don't think people realize how invaded we truly are by these people. So this is a very Islamophobic far-right person, with Donald Trump's ear, of course. Now, before he was detained, Hamdi spoke at a gala for the Council on American Islamic Relations, a civil rights group. They said this in a statement. Everyone should recognize that arresting a British citizen legally visiting the United States because he dared to criticize a foreign nation's genocide is our government's latest blatant affront to free speech. Our nation must stop abducting critics of the Israeli government at the behest of unhinged Israel-first bigots. This is an Israel-first policy, not an America-first policy, and it must end. Hamdi will remain in detention for a while before being deported. That's according to the activist Sean King. He said on X that Hamdi was told he won't see a judge for almost 2 weeks, and said his detention was based on lies from Laura Loomer. Hamdi's father, Dr. Mohammed El-Shami Hamdi, also disputed the claims against him. He said this: I affirm unequivocally that he has no affiliation with the Muslim Brotherhood or any political or religious group. His stance on Palestine is not aligned with any faction there, but rather with the people's right to security, peace, freedom, and dignity. He is quite simply one of the young dreamers of this generation, yearning for a world with more compassion, justice, and solidarity. One of the things that upset the right in the US is a video they've been sharing of Hamdi talking about the October the 7th attacks.
Netanyahu did not envisage that for the first time since 1948, the Palestinians would actually retake land back from the Israelis. Netanyahu did not envisage that for the first time since 1948, the Palestinians would be able to hold those territories for more than 72 hours.
We are pitying a people who brought a huge victory since 1948. Don't pity them. They don't want your pity. Celebrate the victory. Allah has shown the world that no normalization can erase the Palestinian cause. When everybody thought it was finished, it's roaring. How many of you feel it in your hearts when you got the news that it happened? How many of you felt the euphoria? Allahu Akbar. How many of you felt it?
I mean, I personally don't agree with speaking in that way about October the 7th. We've spoken about this many times on the show. I think the Palestinian people have a right to armed resistance. I don't think anyone has a right to kill civilians, which I think clearly happened on October the 7th. So to the extent that that was making a different claim, I disagree with that. And I imagine we'll see lots of people say, well, this is completely legitimate that he's been detained by ICE because he said XYZ. I think there's a problem with that, though, right? One, this is a guy who has a big following, articulate man, appears on Sky News, someone with a lot to say. And what you said there isn't more extreme than lots of people who have a massive following and who are very close to Donald Trump, who have massive power on the United States. So, for example, Senator Lindsey Graham suggesting Israel has the right to nuke Gaza.
Can I say this? Why is it okay for America to drop 2 nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end their existential threat war? Why was it okay for us to do that? I thought it was okay. To Israel, do whatever you have to do to survive as a Jewish state.
So that's fine. That's completely fine. Now, if you say something about October the 7th, which is different from the mainstream narrative in the United States, you get sort of brought up by ICE. But if you say you want to kill 2 million civilians with a nuclear bomb, that's fine. One might also ask if it's more extreme than Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who visited the US this month, saying that starving Gaza's entire population to death might be moral. Curtis, what do you make of this story?
Well, first of all, the free speech warriors are back, right? The political right have obsessed about free speech and said that the left always want to cancel them. And this is what happens when they put their policies into practice. This is what real cancellation is, by the way. If you get cancelled and you get your own podcast and your own TV show to moan about it, that's not being cancelled. But being detained by the US government, that really is. I mean, look, I share your sentiment on what he said about October 7th. Of course, none of us are going to say it was a good thing. It was, we should be celebrating innocent people being killed on the 7th of October. But to deconstruct that compared to obviously what some of the Israeli politicians are saying, right, is that the Palestinians deserve armed resistance. That is true. And again, even though we don't support innocent people being killed on the 7th of October, the amount of people killed on that day is nowhere near the size of what the IDF have done in the last 2 years. In fact, what people don't like to talk about, especially on the mainstream media, is that Israel killed their own on the 7th of October through the Hannibal Directive. So with that context, of course, trying to detain this person and the fact that they might be there for 2 weeks, right, is absolutely wild. But of course, this isn't about deterring terrorism or anything like that. It's because of the political views of those who do not support Israel. Because at the end of the day, the Israel lobby, especially with America, are so intertwined that you can't be doing this. Because people like Smotrich, people like Benjamin Netanyahu and many others can say openly genocidal stuff, can say we want to flatten Gaza, can say that all Gazans, despite the fact that 50% of them are children, right, are animals. They can say we want to destroy everyone and everything in its wake. That's absolutely fine. But if the shoe's on the other foot, you can't. Now, I mean, to look at ICE more widely, first of all, ICE is obviously about immigration, and Donald Trump's immigration policies have been extremely right-wing. But this isn't even a thing about immigration because he's not an immigrant, right? He's a British citizen who's literally going abroad, visiting America to do speeches, right? So it's not about immigration. But we've got ICE agents who are basically the modern-day Gestapo going around states, and they're now getting to the point where they're arresting police officers. Right? Now, that is a severely, severely flawed political calculation from Donald Trump. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people who are in the American police force, American cops, voted for Trump. Probably a lot of fascists are in there too. But one thing they don't like is when other people come in and sort of tell them what to do. They do look after their own. So this is a really bad political calculation for Donald Trump when ICE agents are going after police officers. But look, we've got now this sort of new wave of far-right fascist sort of narratives, which is if we disagree with you, we want to deport you, right? They're saying it about Zohran Mamdani. They're saying we want to, this is prominent US politicians saying that they want to denaturalize and then deport Mamdani. Why? Because he's pro-Palestine. Is that why? Is it because he wants to freeze the rent? It is. It's because he's anti-Israel. He's a socialist. I mean, even Donald Trump has been saying that. He's been saying, well, what's going to happen when a communist wins New York mayoralty? This is the political landscape we're in. Also, I found it very funny what Laura Loomer was saying about the Islamic foot washing stations. Once again, right, I mean, the right wing trying to push this conspiracy theory that there's, the West is being Islamified through invasion. Once again, it's Amazon, biggest company in the world. It's simply because demographic change and they want to make more money. That's simply it. Which ironically, look, like obviously those of us who are normal, we don't care if you're a Muslim, we don't care what religion you are. If you're a decent person, that's all that matters. But for the right wing who don't want to see the Islamification of the West, crazy stuff anyway, then why do they support the capitalist system, which does rely on high amounts of immigration? It's very contradictory stuff there. But yeah, this is an extremely fascist government. I know that you get the right wing being really offended when you say the fascist word. And I do think some people on the left can be just a little bit overzealous when they use that word. But when it comes to the US, it is absolutely quintessentially fascist. You could not disagree with it. And their immigration policy shows that to be the case. We have ICE agents going after people who we don't even know if they're legal or illegal. They're just seeing a person of color and arresting them. We're seeing them beat up people. I mean, they shot a pastor, for God's sakes. They're disappearing and blackbagging people on the streets. People have died in their detention. And this is the end result of Trump's America and their far-right immigration policy, especially if you contradict Western foreign policy.